This is Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Pushing you to year-on-year progression. With your host, Ross McKinley.
Yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. And in today's episode, I'm going to do what I set out to do from day one. Arguably, this is the thing that got me where I am. My favourite talking point. Not motivation. Definitely not the fucking diet. Training. I am going to go full on 110% nerd. And we're going to talk all about what exercises you must be doing. So if you want to know the considerations that I have when I'm programming for my one-to-one clients, for the men in the inner circle, the 28-day challenge, the lessons that you can get in terms of application in the gym for you personally, this is the podcast for you. So, the question. You'll have heard it before, no doubt. Everyone must squat. If you want a bigger chest, you must bench. Deadlift is the best indicator of true strength. The only exercise you should do for your arms is heavy dips and heavy chin-ups. Everyone in every gym has some bro or some old, weathered, rhino-looking old guy telling them this is the exercise that you must do. It's in every one of their workouts, or it's in every one of their programs. If you're not doing this, your chest won't grow. Could be the cable chest fly with a slight twist at the end because it gets the line in the middle of your chest. Could be that you need to be doing flat bench or incline bench to work your upper pec. Or it could be one of the main lifts like I mentioned before. It could be the squat, the barbell back squat, the deadlift, classic conventional deadlift, bench press, chin-ups, dips. We're going to cover them all. So I think this comes from a place of people wanting to know that they're doing stuff right. Everyone that comes to me in every program, every man wants certainty. They want to know that if I do this one exercise and if I nail this, can you give us the best possible advice that if I put my effort in, I'm going to grow. I'm going to get what I want. My chest's finally going to get bigger. My legs are going to grow. What everyone forgets is, before I get into this, I'm going to go into a lot of detail here. What everyone forgets is that everyone's different. And why I say that about the detail is that sometimes PTs and coaches online use everyone's different as a way to get out of difficult questions and difficult answers. What I want to do in this episode is give you the fucking actual criteria for how you would assess if an exercise is good for you. How you would decide, is it a must do? So, when we're looking at exercises, we need to consider, I'm going to rattle them off. Are you ready? Ping, ping, ping. Let's go. Experience, injury history, personal preference, the mechanisms of hypertrophy, the targeted muscle, what are we aiming to train? The splash effect, I'm going to cover what that is. The risk of injury, range of motion, type of exercise it is in terms of free weights, a machine or a fixed plane. And then lastly, of course, is your goal. So I'm actually going to start with the last one that I mentioned there. The first thing that everyone should know when they're in the gym is what is your goal right now. I think that your training in terms of fat loss or muscle gain, your overall physique goal, does have an impact on your actual training session. The reason that I think that is that if you're in a fat loss phase versus a muscle building phase, you might find that in the fat loss phase, you pick safer exercises. When we're depleted, when we're running very low calories, when we're tired, when we're fatigued, you might find that you can't recover from some heavier exercises. Equally, when we're in a muscle building phase, you've got all the energy in the world. Your body weight's a little bit higher. You're a little bit fluffier around your midsection. That belt that you wear is maybe a little bit tighter and you can hit those PBs that you can't hit in the depths of a cut. So that's the first thing before we even start. And then the next one is, what is your goal? What are we training for right now? Not necessarily muscle gain or fat loss, deeper than that. The next level, the thing I ask all my clients, what areas are we trying to improve? I would always pick two. So I would always say, all my clients, what's your two body parts? What's the two muscles that you're aiming to improve? Is it chest and biceps? Is it calves? I've been fucking trying for years, mate. What is it? Know those in your head. We're going to get that in a second why. And then when we look at exercises, let's say we're going to talk about a deadlift, or in fact, we'll talk about a squat. I've done one of my most popular videos on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube now, like, comment, subscribe. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. One of my most popular videos on YouTube, and one of the ones that I've done way back when with Connor and Grafthouse, was actually talking about how a back squat might not be the best exercise for someone who's tall. When we're talking about muscle growth, when we're talking about men who are listening to this podcast, what are we talking about? It's on my fucking top. Aesthetics. It's aesthetically trained. We're not powerlifters. We're not Olympic weightlifters. We're all trained, and you're here and listening because you want to be in better shape. You want to be better physically, mentally, in your life in general. Year-on-year progression, as I keep saying. But to do that, we'll have to have the right tools. So if you're 6'4", long femurs, poor ankle mobility, and you really struggle to hit depth on a squat, and you're not getting the knee flexion that's required, you're not working your quads through a full range of motion, is it a good idea to use a squat as your main muscle building exercise on a leg day? What do you think? No. If you're a powerlifter, if your goal is to have the biggest squat in the gym, even lads that are trained for aesthetics, if you really love squatting, I would keep it in there. I'm not saying that it isn't a good strength indicator, but is it, going to the considerations I mentioned earlier, are you going to be able to work through a full range of motion? Or what range of motion are you targeting at least? What mechanisms of hypertrophy are you stimulating? Remember what they are? We've got mechanical tension, metabolic stress / cellular swelling, and then we've also got muscle damage. So which one of those areas are you going to hit? How can we make sure that the exercise we do get closer to our goal of bigger, better muscle, stimulating that muscle growth, triggering hypertrophy? If you're someone who has poor scapular retraction, you're already dominant in your delts, your front delts, these things here, watching on YouTube. Mine aren't very fucking big, but I've got quite a big chest. And this is what I'm saying. Each individual, you need to look at their physique. You need to look at where they're already dominant. Yes, people can talk about the bench press being a great exercise for upper body strength and as a strength indicator. And it is. But is it the best exercise for your chest? For you, you might find that when you're benching, you're actually not able to keep your shoulder blades retracted. You might find that when you're pushing up on each rep, you're not even really feeling it in your chest. You might be already dominant in your shoulders and your delts are pushing more and more. What does that mean? It means that your delts are going to continue to grow and the weak area is going to stay weak. Is it that when you're doing deadlifts for your posterior chain, your hip hinge movement pattern, if you like, is it that actually you're getting a lot of fatigue from that exercise? Yes, it's great for hamstrings. Yes, it's fucking awesome for glutes. Mint for everything from the fucking top of your head to the heel of your foot. But is it the best thing for muscle growth? We need to know, and what I want you to have by the end of this episode is, I need you to know why something's in there. Understand why you're choosing that exercise over another one. So how? Well, going back to our considerations, we need to think about what the targeted muscle is. What is the goal, both our goal, but then the goal of each exercise? What are we trying to do? Is it that we're trying to work the hamstrings through a good range of motion? Is it that we're trying to work the hamstrings through a lengthened position? Or trying to squeeze them as tight as we can? Or is it that we want a strength indicator? We want something where we can have almost an outlet in our session, a highlight in our session, a challenge, which I have mentioned before. For that, these big compounds could be suitable. So what I suggest with all of this is actually, instead of saying, are there any exercises you must do? Think of it like this. I build most of my programs for my clients. If you're clever here, you can take notes and you can work out how we do it. But I build most of the programs for my clients around 5 main lifts or areas. Squat, bench, deadlift, military press, chin-ups. And also I like to include somewhere a bent over row, and I also really like dips. Now, instead of thinking of those exercises must do, what I would encourage you to think of instead is that they're movement patterns or muscles that you must work to the max, that you must be able to take through a mid-range, which means where it's strongest. You must pick exercises where you can really apply progressive overload and test your strength, where you can create the most mechanical tension. I'm going to break them down for you. So actually, a barbell back squat, what is it? Think in your head now, what we're targeting. We're getting quads, we're getting glutes, we're getting hamstrings. If you do a barbell back squat, you're probably going to get a little bit of lower back, a little bit of your abs, bracing, overall strength. But it's a squat, essentially. That's the movement pattern that we're using. The next one, bench press. Chest, delts, upper back, stability. Using your lats to row the bar down. But your main thing in the bench press is the chest. So you're thinking of what your targeted muscle, the main reason most people do it. It's also, though, really a horizontal press. It's a test of your horizontal pressing strength. Deadlift. You can see where I'm going with this now when we're isolating them and looking at them on a deeper level. What's the deadlift? Well, it's got your hamstrings, your glutes. It's a hip hinge movement, but overall it's working your full posterior chain, which means your back, glutes, hamstrings, like I said before, back of your head to the heel of your foot. It's all fucking involved. An awesome exercise. Military press. Shoulders, for sure, but it's also your overall overhead pressing strength. Chin-ups, calisthenics to an extent. Strength to body weight ratio will improve, much like it will with dips, but it's a vertical pull. It's pulling vertically. Your lats, your rhomboids, traps to an extent, your abs, your biceps. Again, all compound movements, so that all of these exercises are what's known as compound movements, which are multi-joint exercises which hit multiple muscles at once. But we should still always be thinking to ourselves, how can I make these exercises better? Where am I weak? How can I improve my sessions to make sure that I'm getting the most out of them? I want you to think of those 5 main exercises I mentioned there. Also, without a doubt, bent over row. So again, back, horizontal pull is the movement type it is, if you like. So you're hip hinged into position, then you're rowing horizontally whilst maintaining your position. Dips, again, triceps, chest, strength to body weight ratio will improve. Calisthenics, if you like. But think of the 5 main exercises I mentioned. Now, what I want you to think of is, what is the limiting factor for you personally on those exercises? Now, by a limiting factor, what I mean is what gets tired first. So when you're squatting, do your quads give up first? Fucking dry mouth today. Do your quads give up first? Or is it your upper back? Is it your core? Hamstrings, glutes, lower back even. When you're benching, do you feel the fatigue completely in your chest? Or is it that your shoulders round forward? Is it that you slip and you lose scapular retraction? Is it that your upper back isn't there? Is it you just quite simply can't hold the weight? This is when we start looking at your injury history and also your experience, your skin in the game. How long have you been fucking training? Now, some people are going to get pissed at what I'm about to say. Still listen to the rest of the episode. I need that click through. I need that time completed on YouTube on the stats. But this is serious. I want to make it clear that this isn't about giving you an excuse to bitch out. Do not be a martyr. When I'm telling you to think about these things now, I'm trying to open your eyes to how a coach would write your programs, and I want to try to give you some of the legitimate reasons why you might make some clever changes. Some changes that actually in the long run allow you to progress more. So when I talk about experience, let's just give some rough parameters first, some rough targets, some criteria. If you haven't hit these yet, keep training, son. So, can you bench 100 kilo? Can you do 10 bodyweight chin-ups? Can you do 20 dips? Can you squat 3 plates or at least 100 kilo? Can you deadlift 140, 3 plates aside? Just think in your head. Look through those movements. Back squat, can you do 100 kilo for reps? Bench press, can you do 100 kilo for reps? Deadlift, 140, 3 plates aside for reps. Military press, I think 60 kilos overhead's pretty good. So just a 20 each side, strict. Chin-ups, can you do 10 bodyweight chin-ups? Bent over row. Again, it depends on the form. You see a lot of people humping about the bar nowadays and fucking bouncing all over the place when they row. Can you do a strict row with 60 kilos each side, bracing your core, hip hinging properly? And the last one, dips. Maybe 15 to 20 bodyweight dips, I think. Until you're at a level where you're doing all of those things, let me make this completely clear. Do not fucking change or do not remove those exercises. Until you can do all of those things, do not take out those exercises. You can put in additionals, you can put in secondary exercises, you can do a hack squat, a leg press, a plate loaded chest press, you can do a dip machine, you can do an RDL, you can do other bodybuilding movements, you can do machines to make things easier, Smith machine, whatever you want. But until you reach that level, keep those fuckers in. Take with what I'm saying now, take it with a pinch of salt and realise that you're not quite there yet to completely eliminate some of these exercises. But for those of you that are, and even those that are there, it gives you an idea and a better level of understanding. I want to talk to you about why you might make some changes. And are there really any exercises you must do? There's body parts, there's muscles that we must hit. What do I always fucking rave on about? Hit every muscle twice per week. Everything. So I don't personally think that everyone, once you reach a level, needs to barbell back squat. Because when we look at my considerations at the beginning, can we hit the mechanisms of hypertrophy using another exercise? Yes. Can we hit our targeted muscles in terms of quads? Yes. Is there exercises that might have less risk of injury than a barbell back squat? Fucking 100%. Could we possibly use an exercise or use machines to assist us to get a better range of motion and therefore create more time under tension, which relates to more mechanical tension, kind of, and potentially more hypertrophy? Yes. Might it be better for those people with previous injuries that we use a hack squat instead of a barbell back squat? Yes. Might your personal preference be to use a hack squat instead of a back squat? Yes. But we'll have to consider all of the above. We'll have to also think that if you want to get a strong squat and you stop squatting, guess what's not going to be fucking strong? That's why up to a level, until you're competent and confident in the gym, I think you should be doing those movements. That's why they're in all my programs. That's why the highlight of my session is normally one of those things. But for me, for example, instead of a barbell back squat, which I fucking love by the way, but I tell you what I don't love, the fucking stress it puts on my lower back. The impact that it might have on my session the next day or the day after. How fucking fried I feel afterwards. So instead of a barbell back squat, what I might say is right, how can I put my quads through the same level of stress or similar without the impact on my lower back? Hack squat, pendulum. Is that better? Well, for us, for aesthetics, possibly yes, because of the reasons I've just mentioned before. Now for bench press, for me personally, bench press, it's not the best thing in the world. I can get a good range of motion, I can squeeze the bar, but sometimes I'm focusing just too much on moving it from A to B. There's a lot going on, just my personal opinion. There's also the risk of injury associated with bench pressing. How many people, lads train in the gym, how many people do you know in the gym who've tore a pec? Or tweaked a pec, or just had some form of niggle in their shoulder or their chest from bench press? Fucking loads. So whilst I think you've got to get to a level with it, it's sometimes some of these things can become counterproductive once you become a strong cunt. All of a sudden, the risk of injuries through the fucking roof. What I like to call the splash effect, increases, which means that when you do a bench press on a Monday, or a back squat, or a deadlift, any of these compound barbell lifts, when you do one on a Monday, the likelihood is that you're going to use up that much energy and it's going to create that much fatigue and that much muscle breakdown that it's going to impact your sessions, the next session, possibly the one after that. It might even impact you for 3 or 4 days. So that's why we make an educated decision to say, look, this is what we're trying to mimic. Let's see what we can do that has the same benefit for my chest without the associated risk, chance of injury, and this splash effect. Which basically means when you train chest on a Monday, or a better example is, if you do a deadlift on a Monday, and you go really hard on a conventional deadlift, and you're fucking nailing it, you have the best session of your life, you think, fuck me, I am the fucking man. I love ripping a deadlift off the floor. Everyone does. But what happens on the Wednesday, when you've just been deadlifting really heavy on the Monday, or your squat might even be on the Friday or whatever day, but if there's any sort of lagging fatigue, if there's any sort of DOMs or any sort of even just mental fatigue from the deadlift session on Monday, do you think your leg session, let's say you do deadlift on a Monday with back, do you think that your leg session on the Thursday or the Friday or whenever it is, do you think that that week you're going to have the same energy in the tank to do a barbell back squat on the Friday? Now again, in the beginning, and I want to be clear on this, beginners right up to intermediate, and maybe even including intermediate lads, this information doesn't really apply. I think it's important that you learn it, and maybe based on injuries you make some changes, or maybe it's based on personal preference. But I think what you need to remember is am I at a level where I need to make these changes? Have I done my time in the game? Have I done my apprenticeship? Have I built the foundation around these compound lifts first? But once you have, you need to start thinking, actually, wait a minute, my back is fucking fried still. Friday, I come to do legs, mentally I'm fatigued, my back's fried, it affects my barbell back squat, and then you have to go back to my original question. What is your goal? What are your two priorities in terms of body parts that you want to improve? And then you start tweaking your exercises. Can you see how it starts coming together now? Then you start looking at the splash effect and you say, actually, my priority right now is building my quads. If I deadlift on the same week that I back squat, it's going to have an impact on that back squat. Again, you might say, well, actually, I'm a really good back squatter. I get the tension in my quads. I enjoy it. It's a good strength indicator. I don't want to lose that. How can I maximize that? It might be better that the week that you do a barbell back squat, you do a Dorian deadlift or you do an RDL. Here's the key. We still need to hit those movement patterns. We still need to tick the box and train each muscle twice per week. We need to stimulate those mechanisms of hypertrophy. But our principles, our goal in the session of stimulating hypertrophy, of building aesthetics, of looking sick, that's a principle. That's fucking nailed in to my wall. My clients, everyone knows that's what I want to do for all of you, for everyone listening. But the methods, this is where coaching comes in. The method that we use for each person is based on so many factors. Are you someone who, as much as you want to build your legs, you've been back squatting for fucking years and you've still got fucking legs like drumsticks? Is it that you just don't feel it in your quads? Is it that you're a lad who's got fucking shoulders that will blow up at the first sign of a press, but your chest is a pigeon chest? Your shoulders are rounded forward, you're a little bit hunched, and for some reason, you just can't get your chest involved. Well, maybe for you need an exercise, not bench press, but maybe it's a plate loaded chest press where you can get your shoulder blades down and back. You can keep those shoulders fucking out of it, and you can isolate your chest and work it from there. Would that be better for you? Probably. You also need to look in that situation, as I said, everyone is the reason behind that you have the imbalance or the dominant muscles in the first place. Why is it that you've got big shoulders? Why is it that you've got big legs? Could be a positive, could just be that you've trained really hard and they're the body parts that responded. But equally, it could be that you've got a really dominant anterior delt, so the front of your shoulder on each side, but you've actually got a really weak upper back. So you can't keep your scapula retracted, and every time you're pressing, your shoulders are rolling forward and getting involved. It's an injury waiting to happen, but it's also causing you to get a lot of stress through your front delta, making them grow. But your chest and your upper back suffering. Same with your deadlift. You might have a great deadlift. Doesn't mean that your hamstrings are going to be great. Doesn't mean it's not going to cause you lower back problems if you form shit. So we need to look at a deeper level of the programming. What I will say with this though, and this is really important, we need to consider all of the considerations, that I've mentioned. It isn't just a case of, oh, I don't like barbell back squat. Okay, well, what's the trade-off that we're making here? If we don't barbell back squat anymore, my barbell back squat isn't going to be as good. Do I even need a barbell back squat? Do you? Ask yourself. You might not need a barbell back squat, but I'll tell you what you definitely need to do. You need to do a squat pattern in your workout. You need to hit your quads. So what's the next best thing for you? Then it comes to personal preference. Right, I think you're most confident in a hack squat, or you might like a pendulum, whatever it is. You might have the belief in yourself and in the kit that you can go that little bit heavier. That you can keep the focus on your quads because you're not worrying about your upper back caving forward. You're not worrying about dropping the bar or the bar rolling forward or your core giving in. When I used to squat when I was younger, I could always do more weight on a squat. My upper body couldn't take it. My upper body at the time when I was younger wasn't strong enough to squat the weights that my legs could do. What do you think I had to do? I had to say, well, for one thing, I want to keep training legs hard, but also I need to fucking get my upper body bigger. I need to look at what's lacking. It's my lats, it's my traps, it's my rear delts. It's also my upper body strength, so maybe he's doing some good mornings or an exercise to prevent his caving forward. So what I don't want any of you to think is that this is an excuse to not do certain exercises. Let's get that clear. You need to hit those movement patterns. You need to tick the box in terms of each muscle group and hit it twice per week. But what I am saying is, don't be married to methods that someone else in the gym has told you. We're married to fucking principles. I'm married to MPS being stimulated every 3 to 4 hours, you eating protein during the day. I'm married to progressive overload, the mechanisms of hypertrophy, and training fucking hard, logging your workouts. They're principles, they're what we're sticking to, but the methods can change people. And that might be that on your next program, you decide that you maybe's not going to do as much volume on bench press anymore. You've noticed it's giving you a tweak in your shoulder, you're not really getting much gains on your chest from it, and you decide that you're going to change it to a plate-loaded chest press. Here's some other considerations of making a change. I want you to consider the range of motion. Is the range of motion on the new exercise mimicking or similar to the previous or better? By that, what I mean is a bench press is a mid-range exercise. The chest is never really fully shortened on a bench because you can't physically bring your elbows or your arms across your chest and contract your chest. It's never fully lengthened either, but it is in a weak position at the bottom, and that's why people get pec tears. Now, if you do a plate-loaded chest press, yes, you're starting in that weak position in the bottom still, but at the top, generally speaking on a machine, a plate-loaded machine, what happens? You press up and your hands come into the middle. So actually your elbows are coming closer together, the machines help when you keep your scapula retracted, and it's only moving in a fixed plane of motion, and actually your range of motion will probably be greater and you'll be able to contract harder. So that's a good swap. Hack squat for back squat, good swap. Other ones, deadlift. Now, deadlift's a hard one to swap because a deadlift really is a full body exercise. Be very hard to nail down what people are using deadlifts for. I think it's an overall great posterior chain exercise. I think that everybody should do, again, everyone should do a deadlift variation. But could you do a Dorian deadlift? You've seen me doing them recently on Instagram. Could you do a rack pull? Could you do an RDL? Think about it for you personally. I would then also look at what is the exercise you're changing, and then what are you going to in terms of the type of movement. So I mentioned at the beginning of the episode about these lifts, these 5 main lifts, plus you bent over on your dips. What are all of them? Say it yourself now when you're listening. What are all of these lifts? They are compound movements, multi-joint exercises that work multiple muscles at once. Yes, you may have one main muscle of focus, you generally tend to, or what people might be trying to hit with it, but you think, right, it's a compound movement. Am I going to switch, for example? You wouldn't switch a military press, an overhead vertical press. You wouldn't switch that for a lateral raise and say, oh, well, I feel a lateral raise more in my shoulders. No, it's not a vertical press. It's not like for like. But what you might say is, I do want to do a vertical press. I'm not sure about the barbell military press, but maybe I could do a stand and dumbbell press. You might not like that still. You might say, right, I'll go to seated press. But then you've got to say, if you take out the standing element, you're losing some of the benefit in the core. Again, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but you have to, if you're aware of it, you can make better decisions for yourself. I've worked online now for nearly 10 years, writing programs for my friends, right up to building Aesthetically Trained. I can't be in the gym with everyone that I know. But what I can do is give you the knowledge and the tools, or you can ask the questions online, and then I'll say, actually, this is what I think for you. Oh, you've got a previous injury, maybe this would be better. This would be safer. oh, you're more confident on this one, this could be what we could do. So try and think through what is a good change. The final point, I kind of touched on it there, the compound movements. So when we're switching, we want to keep to those compound movements. We don't switch a compound for an isolation. But also we need to look at the benefit or the possible benefits of going from free weights, so the bar can move anywhere, you're controlling the bar, you're using your stabilizing muscles, as people used to say. Or you could go to a machine. So a plate loaded machine, that keeps the path fixed, makes it easier for you in that regard. You could also go to a Smith machine. So if a Smith machine, you might think is easier, but actually sometimes a Smith machine can force you into a bad position. Because if a Smith machine is one fixed path, straight up, straight down. So I think plate loaded machines are probably a little bit better in that sense, in that they've got a little bit more movement and they tend to match the strength profile, the strength curve, or the resistance profile, you might have heard people talk about that, of the exercise a little bit better. And that's that. What do you think? So the take homes here are that there are no exercises that you must do. All of us should be present enough in the process and learning enough and asking enough questions of ourselves, of our PT, of our programming at a basic level to know and understand why we are doing each exercise. I always say to people, it's very, very hard for me to go into a gym, and like PTs, unfortunately, it's a very oversaturated industry. There's a lot of fucking PTs out there. But let me tell you, the last thing I'll do is comment on another PT session without hearing their reasoning. So you might actually be in the gym tomorrow and you might see a PT doing a lift with a client and it looks like fucking shit. Now, maybes, they know why that is. Someone's returned from knee construction, they're doing partial squats at the top of a range. I can't defend everyone. But what I will say is this. Anyone that ever works with me, anyone in the gym in general, all you should know is why you are doing it. And if you can explain that and you can say, well, look, this is my reasons why we're doing this exercise here. Right, why are we doing this? Why is it relevant to me that I do a barbell back squat instead of a hack squat? Right, well actually, Alan, Andrew, Dave, Jerry, at the minute, you're only really squatting 60 kilos a side. You're doing really good, mate, but actually I think that you're not at a level yet where we'd take the squat out completely. I'd like to keep the squat in for a little bit longer, build your strength up on that, give you the confidence from that. You get your most bang for buck, as people say. You get the biggest release of testosterone from compound movements, the most stress on the body, full body movements, if you like, these things. You get them from these big compound movements that I'm talking about now. But what you might also say is, look, we're going to do the barbell back squat. We're going to build up your overall strength. But then the next exercise in the session, to make sure that we completely fatigue your quads, to make sure that we hit those other considerations I mentioned, that we minimize the risk of injury, that we work through a full range of motion, that we consider your goal and the targeted muscle that we're trying to hit. Yeah, we're going to do the barbell back squat, but you recognize that that might actually not be the best thing for your quads. Then we say, actually, once that's done, I've done the hard shit. I'm learning that skill, if you like, and that's what these compound movements are. They're a skill, don't underestimate that. Once that's done, I'm going to go to an exercise that's a little bit easier. And I'm going to fucking hammer it and go mental. I'm going to go to an exercise that assists me to train harder. Or, as I mentioned, some of the bigger lads, some of the big cunts that are listening, those of you that are over the standards I mentioned earlier, those of you that are finding that you're just getting too much soreness off certain exercises, consider switching it out. Consider using something that will help you to train harder, to get more mechanical tension on the desired targeted muscle, and to minimize the impact that it has on other sessions. Remember, in all of this, what is your goal? Aesthetics, being big, being cool, being shredded, and the two muscles that you're trying to hit, and build your programming around that. And that's what any good coach does. That's what I always try to do. That's what I do. And that's what I want you to do moving forward. The take-homes. I hope you fucking got them. Know and understand why. That's all I ask. That's all I ask of anyone, any PT, anyone in the gym. I don't know what's inside someone else's head, but if I stop them and ask them, that's what I used to say to the lads in the gym when I used to have my gym, just to be able to tell us why. Make changes based on data, not emotion. So don't make changes just because you're finding a lift hard. This is about making educated decisions based on data, feedback from your sessions, looking at your program, and based on your goals. Make changes at predetermined checkpoints, meaning that you make a change at the end of your program, not just on the day because deadlifts are hard. Because bench press is hard. You say, actually, I've noticed the last few weeks I'm getting a bit of a niggle, not feeling great. Maybe I'll look at changing this in my next program. Maybe that's what you need to be writing down. That's the importance of a logbook. You look back and then you plan forward, just like checking in with your diet. And then the last one, go with what's best for you. Not me, not the fucking rhino in the gym who taught you, not some bro who's maybe taken gear, who's maybe got better genetics than you, who's just always had big legs, or who's always had big chest or big arms or whatever it is. You don't know what other people have went through to get what they have got. You never know the full story. So all you can do is the best you can do. And then once you know you're doing that, once you're happy and you're locked in, you say, right, here's my program, these are the changes I've made, this is what I'm going to do moving forward. What is the one thing I will never stop telling people to do? Log your workouts for fucking sure, have a workout plan, work with a coach, all those things. But once you've got all that, what do you need to do every week? Stimulate hypertrophy, consider all the considerations I mentioned earlier. What's the one thing? I hope some of you are screaming it at your radio or at your phone or at the fucking TV right now. Apply progressive overload. Apply progressive overload. Go in each week and beat yourself. You don't have to add weight at the bar every week. You can go for one more rep. And it's beating yourself and applying progressive overload whilst maintaining the same coaching cues, form and tempo as you did the week before. Don't be one of them people who just to beat that logbook, all of a sudden, form's out the window. Keep everything the same. Don't be afraid of microloading. Get those little small biscuits out. Put the 1.25s on each side. And slowly those 1.25s will turn into 5s, into 10s, into the big 20s. And then you'll be flying. That's it. I hope you liked the episode. Please do me a favour. Drop us a comment below. Did you feel that maybe you should have been doing certain exercises? Has this been a relief to hear an expert like myself tell you that you don't have to do a barbell back squat every single session? Are you now going to consider changing your program? Have you thought about rotating exercises in the past? Has this helped? Would you like to see more episodes like this in the future? More training, nerdier. You can see I get very excited about this stuff. Would you like to hear and see more episodes like this in the future? If yes, don't just say yes and leave us hanging. Ask a question. If it's a good one, I'll consider it. Thank you very much. As always, please do what I always ask you to do. Pay it forward to a friend. Like, subscribe, comment. I enjoyed that one. Thank you.
You've been listening to Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread the word.